Hi there.
Morning.
How are you doing today, Robert?
Yeah.
I'm Kenny. Nice to meet you.
And you are Kenny?
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure. And you're in the office, dude. Look like you've been working already. Who else is here? Or who else is supposed to be here?
I'm not sure. My session that I just did before this ran like 8 minutes late. So maybe some people are kind of running behind or taking a brief break. We can begin. We'll begin, I think, in about maybe like 2 or 3 minutes probably. And we'll just kind of begin discussing it all.
That's okay. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. So are you an instructor at the camp, a director, or hi everybody?
No, I'm an instructor.
Oh, wonderful. Have you been in Capitol before?
Yeah, I did 5 camps last year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you've definitely been in Capitol before. Yeah. Hi everyone.
Hello, John.
Hello, guys.
I saw
Good
John
morning.
pop
How
up
you
for a
doing?
second. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How's it going, Kenny and Mike? And who else is here? Daniel is here. Hi, Jessica. Long time no talk.
Hi.
Just popping in and out. I just want to say good morning to you guys.
Yeah. Well, good morning. Thanks for stopping by. We'll wait like 1 minute and then we will get started, okay? Because I think that there should be like 2 or 3 other people that should be showing up, I think. Let's see. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. my lifeblood. Okay.
I know Jessica was giving me a hard time yesterday when I suggested bringing a kettle to your room so you can have coffee in the morning.
Well, Dan Wadley, what are they called? The K-Cup machines. He actually brought one of those. So
Oh yeah?
I thought it was funny. I was like, I was like, man, I really wish I could, but I was like, I don't. The cost benefit seems low.
Yeah.
Did you talk to Dan this morning? Were you in Dan's meeting this morning?
I was,
Jessica?
yeah, briefly, but I think I was in the wrong place because we were all there and we were like, wait, and then we all kind of left.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Hi,
Good,
Chris. Good
Jersey.
morning.
How's everybody's year going so far? All right?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good.
Mm.
Good.
Okay, well, now that Chris is here, I think that we have a critical.
Sorry, I had to
match
use the
for him.
facilities between sessions.
Please don't be sorry. It's okay. My session went 8 minutes late, so I had to figure that other people were probably in the same boat as me. But yeah, happy you can make it. I think that we can probably get started now. Okay, so this is the point where I share my screen. Okay, I can do this. I can do it. Okay, you all see that, and then if I hit this button, it gets to full screen. Wonderful. Okay, everyone can see it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So this discussion should be exactly that, a discussion about how we can get the most out of the curriculum. By that, I think that we're going to be starting off as like an overview of what camp kind of looks like, because from what I understand, there are some newer instructors in our group. So we kind of want to go over what typical days look like, what rotations are, and then talking about the curriculum and key parts of the curriculum that I think we should really focus on throughout our time at camp. So let's dive in. Yeah, so I think that what we're going to do in particular for curriculum flow is that I'm going to do an overview of what all the days at camp look like, the general themes that we're advancing through, all of them, and then go on to the specifics. And there's a Q&A time at the end. I would much rather have you all just ask questions or insert comments or things that worked well for you, things that did not throughout the entirety of the discussion, because we all have a wealth of knowledge amongst us, and we should take advantage of it. So understanding that, please ask questions or comments whenever you have. To begin, a typical day at camp. I think that from this is kind of important. One thing that's important to understand is that from 9:30 to noon, you're with a lab, and it may not. You're with a class, and it may not be the class that you work with normally in the afternoon, because in the morning you're rotating through a multitude of different camps. And what's the important part about the morning thing that you all should understand is that I don't think that lectures are really effective towards classes, especially when they're in the summer, especially with their students in the morning who are still just waking up. So usually I kind of limit my discussions. I limit my lectures and rather have discussions that go on about whatever the themes are and apply them. And that's usually when you are by yourself. Then after lunch, we have lab time from 1 to 2:30, then again from 3:30 to 5. And that's when you have RAs with you all. I want to talk about RAs in particular in a few slides, but I just want to emphasize that the RAs are there to assist you in whatever you are doing, and you should take advantage of that. Usually what that means is that I usually met with whoever's in my RA during lunchtime, that 12 to 1 time, even if it's just for 5 minutes to discuss, hey, in the afternoon, here's what I'm doing. Here's how I think you can help. That way you two are on the same page as to how you all want to facilitate things. Because in the afternoon, it should be practices and applying what you learned in the morning. And then, of course, from 2:30 to 3:30, that's when you have that little break where they do team building. That's also your break time where you're trying to prepare for your afternoon or the next day. Followed by study hall happening in the afternoon from 6 to 7. Study hall is a really interesting time for me because I find that you can either get a whole lot of work done or not at all. So usually what I do for study hall, and it varies by camp. Sometimes for study hall, we have the entire camp together. Sometimes you have 2 labs together that are stratified by experience level, or you have your own lab by itself. But regardless of how you do study hall, I think what's really important is that you give the students a goal for what they work towards at the end, i.e. by 7 o'clock today, you all should have outlined your entire case for what it should be. That way they have something that they work towards. Otherwise, students may be a little bit lost during study hall about how they can use their time. Are there any strategies that some of the previous instructors have had that you all found really effective to like maximize the use of study hall time effectively?
Well, I just think being goal oriented, especially the closer you get to tournament, then it becomes rather easy, to utilize that time most effectively because they have to be prepared. So, goal oriented based on what you did in class, to either, improve upon a skill, research, building cases. I think just being goal oriented is really the best, and also being aware what the heck they're doing on their laptops. I think that's another thing.
Yeah, usually
situational awareness in the lab, I think, is important too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that usually in study hall, it's good to have an instructor in the front or an instructor in the back. That way you can always see the screens and what students are working on throughout the entirety of it. And then also like explaining that what they're doing has a purpose, that you're working towards something. That's not only the tournament at the end, but what does this exercise do for you? I find it's a really good way to motivate students because oftentimes even younger students, even middle schoolers, if you treat them like responsible adults, oftentimes they'll rise to the occasion if you give them that kind of trust.
Very true.
Very true. Yeah, but like I said, if people have any questions or comments, please just chime in. But we'll continue on. Rotations. So like I said, from 9:30 to 12 every single day, you're going to be working with a different lab. So usually how that works is that there will be a camp list that will be available now on Cloud, apparently on tomorrow, Monday, that will explain who was in the lab, their experience level in debate, as well as their age range. I think that is necessary information that you should read before you go into the lab the first time to understand how you all want to approach it. For instance, if you are talking about research, the way that you might teach research to middle school students might be a little different than how you teach research to high school students. And as a result, you should structure your lab, your lecture accordingly. Moreover, I think that what you should also do is that during breakfast time, if you know you're going to be in another person's lab or a class, talk to that instructor, figure out what they figure works best for them, what hasn't worked as well, and those kind of things. And I think that's really important towards having a lot of collaboration as well as consistency amongst the lab, because since you're not working with the same class every morning, unless all the instructors are on the same page as to what they should be teaching, there will by definition be gaps of knowledge throughout the entirety of the camp. And we want a really uniform baseline understanding of the topic and argumentation skills. The second thing I will say about rotations is that they're important because what tends to happen a lot more, in particular with college students or RAs, as well as some of the high school students that are RAs for our camp, is that they get very territorial or possessive of their lab. They start prepping out particular teams in order to try to make sure that they do extra well at camp. And I think that's really unethical given what our mission as Capital is. We're all camp counselors here. They're all of our students. And part of the reasons why we do rotations is to make sure that we're trying to not foster any favoritism towards any particular lab. And that's kind of like the beauty of rotations, is that we can hear multiple perspectives and we can work together as a camp to foster excellence through competition, because competition is a pedagogical means towards an end, and that being academic excellence, not a trophy that you'll get at the end, rather. But yeah, labs are divided through age and experience, and you work with them through lunch. Cool. Moving on. Year one. So vast majority of the people who come to Capital are first year debaters. These are people that tend to not have any debate experience. They may have some public speaking experience. Maybe they did theater or mock trial or choir or those kind of things. So usually the people that sign up for a Capital Debates program, they are novices. They're green as can be, which means that we spend a whole lot of time just getting them acclimated to the debate. Public speaking is the biggest fear that Americans have. It's literally bigger than darkness, spiders, or even like death. Like people are more scared of death of public speaking than dying, which is say a lot about how we should approach this activity. Which is why from days 1 through 3, we talk about public speaking. What I think that's really important is that on the first day of camp that you have with them, when you meet your labs for the first time, we go over, you have them give a speech on the very first day. but I don't think you should label it as a speech. The activity that I do that I find really effective is what I call the pots and pans activity. What it is that I get out a sticky notes, and I write up pairings and I randomly shuffle them. So peanut butter and jelly, Batman and Superman, etc. Going through on. I stick one sticky note on each of the students, and then I have them all go around and ask each other questions about what's on their back. They could be like, am I alive? Am I an object? Did I die? Am I fictional? Etc. Etc. Until they find their partner. That gives them the opportunity to start talking to the class already. Then when they find their partner, have them interview their partner to find out 5 things about them, such as like their name, how old they are, what their interests are, etc. That way, automatically, the class has talked to other people and they found a particular person they have talked to, at least in depth, for about 5 minutes. Then after that, I have them both introduce each other to the class. And automatically, when they do that, they've already given their very first speech by day 1. And usually they don't realize that they did it. And the beauty of it is that they have a partner with them, so they're not giving their first speech by themselves. And as well, this gives you the opportunity to start already evaluating your students about whether or not they're nervous, do they seem organized, etc., etc. And usually you can figure out whether or not someone has public speaking experience based off how they present their partner. So it also serves as a good litmus test for how they performed. And yeah, so during days 1 through 3, we do public speaking activities and exercises. We start going over the debate format and cases. On actually day 1, I believe we're planning on having, day 2, we're going to be talking about what the club debate format is, as well as giving a demonstration debate so they can kind of see what they are working towards. On day 4 through 7, that's when we engage in the nitty-gritty. We start understanding how to write debate cases, how to give an opening, what are the components of argumentation, how do I use pathos. All those kind of things happen from days 4 to 7, including research as well. Usually on day 4, that's when I drop it to them that there's going to be a tournament on day 11 to 13, and they're going to be competing at that tournament. Because one thing that I find is to be a very effective motivator is the idea that they're going to be on the spot and apply some light pressure onto them that they're working towards a goal, that they can show off their success during the practice debates, but also during the tournament. And then the showcase on day 13, which is when they debate in front of their parents and their family, which is also one of the ways that they're able to show off their knowledge. But fundamentally, the goals of year 1 is gaining confidence in public speaking, understanding the debate format, understanding the component of an argument, as well as understanding how to research. And those 4 things, if you can do those over 4 weeks, that's a complete success in my book. A lot of students, even in high school, struggle to write basic research papers. A lot of students struggle to get presentations. So we can accomplish that in 2 weeks. We've done our job effectively. But yeah, any questions or comments about year 1 curriculum or anything like that? Solid. Sweet. We'll keep moving on then. Year 2. Oh, I should format better. Here's the caveat before I even begin. The difference between year 1 and year 2, it can be a really artificial distinction. A lot of our students that do capital debate that return oftentimes do not have debate programs throughout the year to compete in, which means that year 2 debaters can literally have just 2 weeks of experience more than year 1, which means that teaching year 2 curriculum can be kind of challenging because you have to balance out different skill sets and whatnot. But regardless of which, even if they had 2 weeks of experience, they know enough about what capital camps are like. They know what to expect. They're at least more familiarized with public speaking. That's not as big of a deal, which is why days 1 through 3, we review the format and engage in case writing. That way we can kind of accelerate the process so we can focus a lot more on the second half of the debate, that being the refutation and strategy components. What I mean by this is that oftentimes the first year curriculum is about making students understand how to give a speech, how to give presentations, but they kind of get lost in the second half about how to engage in a refutation with strategy. Oftentimes, first-year debaters will, if they get taught, if some team says yes, I say no, and I'll do that for all the arguments. And as a result, they just kind of attack arguments without any kind of tact or strategy, and that's what we want to try to foster in year 2. And then we focus on the practice debates and then the tournament showcases from days 8 through 13. But yeah, the differences between year 1 and year 2, most that to do with the second half, learning advanced refutation strategy and whatnot. Kind of going through it all. But yeah, most of your students though will usually be in year 1. So we'll have some year 2 debaters, but not a whole lot. Usually most of them are year 1. Year 3, I won't spend a whole lot of time on because we hardly have people who come back from year 3. But what will be important for you all to understand is that the way that we want to make year 3 different from year 2 is that we're going to have them start judging debate rounds. So this is a very novel innovation in capital debate. We want to have the idea to be able to foster leadership amongst peers. So if you have 2 or 3 or 5 year 3 debaters who come in, they'll probably be in a year 2 lab because there's usually not enough debaters to make a lab that's solely of year 3. As a result, what you'll hear about year 3 debaters is that they'll start judging debate rounds and serving as a mentorship role for the younger students. They get to practice their flowing and their round vision and explaining how do you judge a debate without bias? How do you evaluate competing arguments and those types of things? So just like year 2, from days 1 through 3, they review the writing, they review the club format and write cases. But days 4 through 7, they're both judging debates and engaging in advanced refutation. The cool part is that if you have several year 3 debaters, what we're planning on doing is that on day 6 or whatnot, day 6 or 7, we'll have another demo debate where we'll pair them up with another RA or an instructor, and have them debate against another RA and instructor with another year 3 debater, and we'll have a demonstration debate that way. And that gets the kids really involved and really excited about doing debate, and they get to show off in front of the camp, which is nice because showing off and having pride in your work are 2 sides of the same coin. But then, yeah, 8 through 10, they're judging practice rounds and debates. And then 11 through 13 is a tournament and the showcase. So yeah, year 1, introduction to public speaking and debate. Year 2, advanced reputation strategy. Year 3, judging and pedagogy. What makes an effective debater? What makes an effective judge? How do we become leaders and mentors for our community? Those kind of questions. So yes, that serves as the overview for the curriculum for years 1 through 3. Are there any questions that you all have yet?
Do we expect more club debaters this summer? I'm just curious because it seems like, because they bring to the mix more experience, obviously.
Yeah, I can't really speak to the recruitment aspect of it or what the numbers look like as far as that concerned. I do know that certain camps attract more club debaters than others, then those tend to be bigger camps. So at least some of my experience, that's been what's true. But yeah, that's probably a question for the headquarters staff as a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm really interested in that as well. But yeah, thanks, Chris. Okay. So here are the key changes in the curriculum or things I want to emphasize for you all if you all have taught before. So number 1, we're doing SPAR debates and a lot of SPAR debates. If you all don't know what those are, that's fine. SPAR debate is exactly what you think about it with like karate or boxing. It's like light debates on topics to get people warmed up and familiar with particular skill sets. On day 2, we engage in SPAR debates, and they're really simple topics. It's like, what's better, ice cream or pie? And they just get in the habit of debating. That starts making debate a lot easier for them. That way, by day 4, they're starting to get used to the debate enough that they're not really freaking out about any particular thing, and they kind of understand that they can indeed be a debater. But starting on day 3, when we start going over refutation or pathos, the use of emotional argument, we are going to use SPAR debates as the vehicle to practice those exercises. So let's say we just gave a refutation lecture. What we could do is that we can ask a volunteer in your lab to come forth and give a basic speech in favor of a topic, and then we'll pause the debate there. We'll give them, let's say, 10 minutes, and they'll write out how do they want to refute it given the lecture they were just given, and then they will give their speech as a result of that. So as a result, SPAR debates on day 2 are going to be relatively easier, but as camp progresses, we'll start modifying these SPAR debates to practice particular skills that they just learned in previous lectures. That way they get lecture as well as practice towards what they are doing. And these debates are relatively short. They're about 5 minutes long usually, if you're like thinking about the entire like speech time with prep time. So they don't take very long. The point of it is to make it so they do several of them. That way they are not simply just learning in theory, but they're also practicing it. Because a lot of students, if we just simply talk to them and just lecture, they will nod along like they understand, but they won't ask questions, and they'll think they understand, or they'll be too embarrassed to actually ask what they're confused about. And SPAR debates is one of the easiest ways to make them practice what they're learning in a way that's safe and not a lot of pressure on them. Next thing is that lessons should be flexible. For the majority of people who are teaching at Capital, you'll be working with first-year debaters. So I want to emphasize that the curriculum for first year has been refined over 4 or 5 years. So it's pretty solid as to how we should be teaching. But one thing that I'm going to try to change or work with Capital on, because I'm on the curriculum committee, the people that are writing and trying to innovate, is that we want to kind of to give more options. So everyone has a different teaching style. So we want to try to accommodate that and give different lesson plans that have the same goal or objective, which is to learn a particular skill. But maybe there's a variety of different ways that you can learn that skill. And maybe your classes are different as well, which means that maybe some different lessons would be good. But regardless of which, it's really important, in particular for the first year, that we're all advancing the same skill set and the same type of argumentation theory, even if we teach it a little bit differently. So lessons. Like I said before, years 2 and 3 emphasize preparations for the second half of the debate. And finally, one thing that I'm really happy about is that we're changing some of the argumentation models. Before, we were doing Capital's model, which is like a 5-point argument model, like claim, evidence, rationale, unstated value, and like some other thing that was in there. And I think that one thing you all, I think, could empathize with me is that getting them to understand what an argument is hard enough on its own, let alone making them apply a 5-point argument model into the debate is really, really complicated and usually does not happen. So as a result, we're changing it to the common argument model. That's something that I teach my college students as well. It's really simple. There's a claim. It's what you want to convince someone to be true. Then there's a warrant, which is the rationale that proves the claim true. And then there's the impact, which is why does this claim matter if it is true? In other words, I think X because of Y, and this matters because of Z. One thing I will emphasize is that evidence and rationale are not the same thing. I can give you an example. If Elon Musk said that artificial intelligence is going to save the planet, that could be evidence because that's a theoretical expert that is testifying about his opinion. However, rationale would be, why does he think that way? And why is that true? And I think that that is a lot more important than the evidence itself. Capital debate cares a whole lot more about refining their critical thinking skills and their ability to compare evidence. So it's a lot more so about looking at what smart people say, but understanding why do they think that way. For instance, evidence as to why the economy is doing well could be that unemployment is at a historic low. The rationale for why that proves the economy is doing well is that unemployment is a key metric about how the economy is doing. Maybe it's a better metric than how GDP is growing. Maybe it's a better metric than consumer spending or consumer confidence, right? But the ability to compare those kind of things is rationale comparison. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that is more so what we're thinking about when we think about warrants, right? It's the rationale, in addition to evidence, or more so rationale. Understanding that, then, if there are no questions, I want to talk about becoming a great public speaker. This is what we do for the days 1 through 3 of the first year lab. I think that starting a discussion about what makes a good public speaker is very, very important towards maximizing the curriculum's value. I usually do this on day 1 or 2. I have them say what makes a good speaker. Is it their body language, their eye contact, their emphasis, their cadence, the repetition of themes, in order to get them to start identifying what makes a good public speaker. You also should have them speaking every single day, whether it's impromptu speeches or spar debates every single day. They should have practice, and they should critique speeches. And this one, I want to take a time to pause for a second. The very first speech I ever showed a class is this video that I included in this YouTube URL right here. It's by this guy named Pietro Bozzelli. He has a PhD in engineering, and he's an international Armani model. He is like muscles on muscles. And he gives a TED Talk, and it's phenomenally bad. It's so horrible. He is stuttering. He looks very nervous. His jokes aren't landing. He's moving. He's fidgeting all the time. And I show this video to them because I want them to understand a few different things. One, it doesn't matter how smart or good looking you are if you cannot convey your argument, right? The power of advocacy. Two, this video should serve as a how not to do public speaking. How do they understand things they should try to avoid as well? A literal manifestation of how to not do a TED Talk. And 3, they can start critiquing speeches in particular. That's why I typically show that video, because it's also kind of fun. But also, I think that it's really helpful to build camaraderie between lab mates is that when people give a speech in front of the class, I'll usually have them start with, what do we think that this speaker did well? And that's when I open it up to the class. So the class can give compliments to the speaker about what they did well, how to make them feel better. I usually don't allow the class to give constructive feedback, if you will, because sometimes they don't have the most tact, and sometimes it's not even constructive. It was things like, that point was dumb, which you can't really work with and whatnot, and that's really disempowering. So as a result, constructive feedback I usually reserve for the instructor, but any positive feedback I usually open up for the class as well. But then again, watching speakers that do really, really well and speakers that do really, really poorly are both ways to become a better public speaker, as long as they're also speaking themselves. But yeah, becoming a great public speaker. Understanding that, we'll move on to the next point. Argument, reason, and evidence. I think that what's really important is that we have to understand the structure of an argument, right? The three components of the common argument model, that being claim, warrant, and impact, and have them practice identifying the elements of those arguments. I think that one of the easiest ways to do that could be there's like a walk the line exercise, and that's when you can put an imaginary or literal line in the classroom, and then you give them like 17 or 15 questions, and then you just have them write if they agree or disagree with the statement, and give a one and a because with it. Like for instance, country music is better than rap music, yes or no? And they will explain why. And they do that 15 times over with 15 different questions, some silly, some more politically serious. And then you have them, then you say the question out loud, and then they walk to either side of the classroom for which other one that they agree with. Then you have them argue with each other about it. Why do they think that way about different arguments, calling on different people? That way everyone has time to speak. And as a result, that gives them the practice of starting to debate and argue as well. The other thing that I find that works particularly well is the survival exercise. That's the one, if you all are returning, it's where like there are like 15 or 17 people.
Right.
Yeah, there's 15 or 17 people that can survive on this new arc, and you can only choose 10 of them to live, to start a new human colony. And some of them are like a doctor that's had 2 heart attacks at 70 versus a med student that's almost out of college, and you're trying to compare these different people to figure out what makes a good society or what will be the most sustainable population. And automatically when you do that, you're comparing values and warrants and impacts, and as a result they can start collaborating and working together. In particular for the survival exercise, what I do is that I have them do it by themselves, like figure out who the other 10 they're going to save and the 5 that they're going to kill. And then I have them write out why. And then I have them work with a partner, and they have to negotiate together as to what they want their group to be like. And then when they finish that partnership meets up another partnership, and they start collaborating as well. And as a result, they engage in little mini debates as well as negotiation and deliberation, while also getting to know the lab mates as well. But yeah, the important part for the argument, reason, and evidence, so at least for the first year debaters, is that if we can have them understand the difference between a claim and a warrant and how to engage in warrant comparison, that's a success, right? And having understand that there's more than just simply a because to every statement. Yeah. Wonderful. Research. Research, to be honest with you, is the thing that I struggle with the most towards teaching students. Because it is a skill that I don't think is highly emphasized, and it's usually a skill that you learn as a capstone to graduating from high school. So teaching middle schoolers and even high school students can be a little hard. Here's the first thing I will say. Usually there's a knee-jerk reaction that if they can find any source that proves something true, that they want it to be true, they'll just grab onto it and think it's good, right? Which is not really the way they should think about it. We want quality sources of evidence, a lot more so than quantity. So having them understand how there are different layers of evidence, how some media sources are better than others, how some authors are better than others. What's more important, a person who has a PhD in criminology or a detective in Chicago that's been working for 30 years that's testifying? How do you weigh those pieces of evidence? The qualifying is incredibly important. Additionally, I think it's important that students understand that being able to discuss a piece of evidence is not simply just repeating what someone says. It's understanding why they think a certain way and being able to use that rationale to beat the competing rationale. In other words, it shouldn't be simply saying arguments like, according to the Harvard College of Economics, AI is going to take away half our jobs by 2050. Like, that's indeed, that's repeating what articles said. They should understand why it is true. Because oftentimes in debates, you'll find an article saying that something is true and another article saying it is not, which means that the debater has to engage in a warrant comparison, which requires the understanding of the argument.
Can I ask Can I add something real quick?
Yeah,
Kenny,
of course, Chris, please.
Just also varying the types of evidence.
Yeah.
If it's all expert testimony, quotes from experts, it becomes a stale argument very quickly, and it's very shallow. So I think to throw factual, statistical information as well as expert testimony and mix it up a bit,
Yeah,
I think is a good approach.
even argument by analogy, right? Or just like everyday examples could be a really good way to humanize these statistics that a lot of the experts use, which I think is a really important way, incorporating pathos, emotional appeals, as well as logos, logical appeals into the arguments. Usually, the way that I do this, as far as practicing as a lab, is several different ways. Number one is that I usually find some pretty good articles myself, or articles that will be in the topic paper that Capital usually releases before camp starts. And I'll look at 2 or 3 of those articles. And if I find an article that I really, really like, I'll share it with my lab. And then I'll have them all as individuals look at that article, and I'll have them like highlight the key components or write down the key components I think is important, as well as why do they think this source is qualified. Then I'll have them meet with a partner and have them compare their notes to see what did they miss, what did they include, why did they do that, and whatnot, as a way to automatically engage in warrant comparison, as well as just engaging in quality research and note taking of articles itself. And that's usually one way to do it. The second thing I would say is that what's effective, at least with beginning debaters or people that do not have a lot of research experience, is that after you brainstorm the pros and cons for any particular topic, have them get a partner and have them research a particular thing, like a particular argument, have them try to find it together with a quality source, and then present it to the class as to why they think it's a quality source and why and what did the article say. As a method, again, then you get into research as well as public speaking. I think that oftentimes if you tell students that you are presenting your work to the class, or you're presenting it to an audience, or you will be evaluated on it in some capacity, that light pressure usually makes them like take the activity seriously, and it fosters a lot of academic excellence as a result. And then working as a team as well takes a little bit of the pressure off. That way they're not totally nerve-wracked. And the reason why this is important is that a lot of students in debate, due to the fact that debate is challenging and unlike any other activity, will shut down the moment that things are, well, the moment that they do not like automatically get it. A lot of our students are very, very talented in other fields such as performing arts or mathematics or what have you, and or sports, but they may not be used to debate, and if they don't get things instantly, or they're not the smartest kid in the class, that can be really nerve-wracking for them. And as a result, they will shut down. They may not even ask you questions, which is why going around the classroom and talking to students is really, really important. What I usually joke about is I usually say that the teacher desk in the front of the classroom is just decoration, because I'm usually never there. I'm usually constantly walking around and seeing what students are doing, and particularly doing the research portion, because that'll be the point where it's the most tedious and meticulous process of debate, is finding evidence and finding sources for the articles. But yeah. Solid. If there aren't any questions or comments, we'll keep cruising. Case writing. By a case, I mean the opening speech. That's the 4-minute speech that the affirmative and negative both give. I think that the very first thing that people start doing is outlining their points. So what are your 3 contentions going to be for the argument? And the moment that they figure out the gist of what the argument's going to say, I have them pause and I have them write an introduction, and an effective introduction, looking typically towards analogies or effective quotes as a hook, in order to make them practice being effective speakers. And it takes usually about an hour of the day just to write an intro, just to write 1 paragraph, and have them practice giving that 1 paragraph the introduction, because we want to make sure that they start with a bang, and then they are effective and confident public speakers. Because after you do that, and after the roast that they know how to debate and they can write effective arguments, they can start developing their 3 points. And then once they do that, they can start anticipating counter arguments and how they want to respond to them. But outlining the case and research obviously go hand in hand, and requires a lot of deliberation and feedback to students. And that's why I think that usually, even on the case writing and research day, you get them set goals as to what they want to accomplish from the hour. That way they can kind of keep a schedule as to what they want to be doing with their time throughout lab, as well as through the lectures in the morning. Yeah, case writing. This part I think is kind of important. Oftentimes debaters, when they start getting a little bit of experience, they'll just be contrarian. They say yes, I say no. For instance, on the AI topic, I watched a debate where a team said AI is good because it lowers the amount of pesticides that get used, and that's good for the environment. And then the con said that's bad because that means that biochemists get laid off, and that's a bad thing to happen. Obviously, that's not a correct response, because if you know anything about like high skilled labor, there's a 100% employment rate. Chemists are always being hired everywhere, and that's probably not the way that you contradict an argument about whether or not artificial intelligence decreases the use of pesticides. So addressing argument with strategy, figuring how they want to respond in a logical order, and engaging in that warrant comparison is everything could be really, really important. And that's why I think like practicing as a group in SPAR debates is really good, because it just starts getting them in the idea of refuting, but more importantly, hopefully refuting with some strategy as they kind of go through them all. But yeah, like I said before, advanced strategy is more so for second-year debaters, just because we're focusing in the first year about making them understand how argument gets deployed, understanding what warrant is. But if they can engage in warrant comparison, that is some really advanced level argumentation, especially for debaters on their first or third week of camp in particular. The summary speeches, I think, is one thing that I want to discuss briefly. I think that the summary speech is really hard for a lot of debaters because they're not really sure what to do when they only have 2 minutes to analyze 20 minutes of arguments. And I think that it's important when we discuss the summary speech that we just break it off into 3 components, right? How do they win the round, or what are the issues that will make sure they win the round? How do they win those issues? And then finally, why does that issue matter? In other words, if artificial intelligence can make it so we can adapt to climate change, that could be one way that I can win. The reason why artificial intelligence can help us adapt to climate change is that AI is more efficient than humans. The reason why this matters is that climate change is a consequence that has catastrophic effects on society in 30 years. It is guaranteed, and the magnitude of it is huge. And if I really want to be advanced, climate change as an impact controls the economy, because obviously as the climate deteriorates, that will obviously hurt our economy as a whole. So, and they do that 2 or 3 times over. Key issues, how they win them, and why they matter. And usually when I talk to students about it like that, it starts making a little bit more sense as to how we engage in our summary speeches. Are there any other tactics that you all have to put in the past to help explain how to do the summary speech in particular? Because I think that it's kind of a hard one to teach them, because they want to write things down, and it's really hard to prep out a summary speech. I'm a big believer that the summary speech should be impromptu, because you cannot predict what your opponents are going to say, and that's kind of the beauty and value of debate as a whole, is because of that. But yeah, if there are any comments, then I'll just keep going. RAs is the last thing I want to talk about. RAs are typically college students. Otherwise, they would probably be instructors. We hire RAs because they have a lot of contemporary experience in debate. They're also, since they're not a peer necessarily, but they're not a full instructor, and as a result, they can be a little bit more approachable. For instance, for some students, we use them because they can provide a huge mentorship role, and they have a lot of contemporary expertise in the classroom. What I will say though is that when you have an RA in the class, and the RA is just simply sitting on the back and checking their Twitter or their Facebook, we're wasting our time with our RAs, which I don't think is effective, because in the afternoon, when you have someone there that can watch speeches or help you explain concepts, you should use them. What that usually means at most camps is that RAs will be on rotation during the afternoon. They'll work with different labs as time progresses, as the days go on. Which means that if I would highly recommend that you meet with your RA over lunch, just for 5 minutes, discuss, here's what I'm doing in the afternoon, here's what I think you can help, here's what works well with my lab, here's what doesn't. That way that you all can be kind of on the same page. And as a result, you all can maximize that student to staff ratio and make sure that they're able to work effectively. One other thing that I will say though, is that you want to make sure that gently remind your RAs to track progress. So there's always feedback forms that we use in Capital to track what people do well and what they didn't in any public speaking activity. The reason why I think you should gently remind them to track experience is that helps out a lot in both your teaching at the course But also for your student evaluations at the end, where you write those 2 to 3 paragraphs about each student, if you can look at what their RAs wrote, you can start having a bigger and broader pattern as to what they did throughout the entirety of camp to write a more effective and thorough evaluation of the student. And that also makes it so that you can also be more prepared to teach them as well, because you understand what other RAs did with their debates and how that went and whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'll say about that. Beyond that though, that's everything I got for you. Any questions? I know that's a lot. Yeah, of course. Well, if there are any questions or any comments, I don't think that we'll get into it. We'll be in 5 minutes early. Sorry, I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully that helps out a little bit.
And all this information will be in the curriculum, I'm assuming, or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be writing the curriculum more so you have like the actual document, but I think that these slides will be uploaded to the cloud, so you'll be able to review it. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, are there any other questions? Good morning, everyone.
Listen, the reason we didn't ask questions is we wanted you to get out done on time.
Of course, yeah.
Thanks for all the hard work you did there, Kenny. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, no worries. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.